Let's talk supply chain. So welcome to the show, Liz.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so happy to have you here. I mean, we only just met, I think about 6 months ago, and it was because I walked up to you and I was like, I love your pink shirt. And we ended up having drinks and getting to know each other. And I honestly feel like we've known each other for a lot longer than 6 months. And I cannot wait for the community to hear more about your journey and what you are doing in supply chain. So let's start at the beginning. What did your early years look like? You have a degree in communication. So how did you end up in supply chain?
Yeah, thank you again for having me. This is an honor. I am a Midwest girl. I'm the youngest of three girls. So I learned quickly I needed to advocate for myself because if I didn't, right, my louder sisters would be above me. I went to the University of Kansas, Rock Chalk, and I chose communications because I truly didn't know what I wanted to do. I
Mhm.
knew I wasn't going to be a nurse or a doctor or a pharmacist and be on this direct career path.
Right.
I started in sales for a construction and home improvement
Woo!
company. Ah, talk about male dominated business, right? So here I am, 22, fresh out of college, trying to sell them, right, on construction and home improvement. I cannot do a DIY project. And here I am trying to sell these people who do it professionally.
I knew
Like,
there was a reason why I loved you. I
buy
can't
from
do them
me.
either.
Yeah. And so, that really introduced me to every type of person, right? Learning to adapt to who you're
Mhm.
talking to. I worked with associate managers, vice presidents, district managers, and everyone had a different need and
Mhm.
want and goal, even though they worked for the same company. So, like most of you who you interview, I fell into the supply chain. I was approached through some of my networking by
Mhm.
someone who said, "Hey, I think you'd be really good at
Did you
this."
say
Right?
why? What was
Yes.
it about me?
Well, and then it's like, let me Google what supply chain really.
At least you had Google. I don't even think I had Google.
Yeah, but but truly, you think to yourself like, okay, this sounds good, but I had all these ideas of
Right.
what the supply chain meant, and
Mhm.
of course, I was totally wrong, totally wrong.
Well, I'm so glad that Google set you straight and that you decided to stay in supply chain. Yeah, when I
Yes.
say I didn't have Google, I didn't have Google. I had conversations at the at the dinner table. Um, so you call yourself a bit of a jack of all trades, or maybe a Jill of all trades in
I like
supply
that.
chain, which I really like because I often advise, especially younger people in supply chain, to jump around, right? Try new things and really explore the industry to find out what it is that brings them joy. What do they enjoy? What are they good at? What are they not good at? So was that a conscious decision for you to sort of experiment? And what has it taught you so far?
The first answer is no. It was not conscious. I started this in about 2021. So COVID
Mhm.
was hitting hard. The needs were so different. Really, I was having conversations with clients that were, I don't care what it takes. I need my product and I need it now. Right. And so that really threw me into, okay, if it's ocean freight, if it's air, drayage, truckload, we're going to get a sprinter van. Really, it was, here is the task, right? A very little information, go do it. And it was insane, right? Hectic. I remember crying one night because I didn't know how to get these things done. There were
Mhm.
141 ships outside of LA, but I needed mine at the front,
Right.
right? And so it forced me to be creative, to learn the different aspects of our business. And I've loved it, right? And the great thing about supply chain is all of those things are just a small fraction of really what the supply chain is, right?
Mhm.
Warehousing, manufacturing overseas, like, nope. I was focused on one small thing. So it was wild, but I learned so much because of that time period. My favorite early memory of getting in the industry, and it's so funny now. I'm gonna have to share the slide with you. So our CEO pulled me in a meeting and he said, okay, tell me how you think your stuff gets to your house from Amazon. Like, what do you think happens? So I kind of like stumbled upon my words. I wasn't sure. He showed me a slide and it had 3 icons, right? The warehouse to another warehouse to your door, right? And he said, this is how we think things get here. Okay. The next slide. 55 icons, customs, documentation, air, transloads, sprinter vans, right. It blew my mind, right? Like, you never think when you're a consumer and ordering off Amazon, wow, think about all of the people, all of the steps, all of the processes that go into this. And that day I'll never forget.
I love that. And I think you need to share that slide with us. I think I'm
Yes,
going to use it. But
you
one
will
of
not.
the things that you just mentioned was that there was a point in time where you went home and cried because you weren't entirely sure. And the reason why I want to pinpoint on this, okay,
Yeah,
is because it's very important for us as women in business, whatever the industry that you're in, we don't go for the jobs like the men do.
right.
The men will go when they've got, 70 to 80% of the skill set. And
Yes,
we will only go when we have 100.
you are.
But
Yep.
it's in those moments that you go for the opportunities with the 70 to 80, maybe it's 50,
Yes,
and you believe in yourself that you know that you can actually figure it out, but you also have those moments of going home and crying and being like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But the
for sure.
next day, getting up and doing one thing after another to get it done. And I want to commend you on that. I want to highlight that for everybody else because I think it's so important that we hang on to those moments and understand we're not alone.
For sure. And especially in such an uncertain time in the
Yeah.
industry, right? I think and we'll talk about this, but my past hasn't been supply chain. So when I walk into a room and someone says, "Oh, I've been doing this for 35 years." I will argue that's not necessarily a good thing today,
That's true.
right? Because how things happened 35 years ago is probably not the most efficient way to do it
Right.
today.
Mhm.
And I think, my boss would say, I'd come and say, hey, I don't know how to fix this, right? I can't get past this. And he'd say, here's the problem. And he'd say, well, what do you think we should do? Well, I didn't come to you because I don't know the answer, right? Like, and you come back to me with a
Yep.
solution.
Yep.
And as frustrating as that was,
Mhm.
I do it to my team right now, but you
Yep.
have to get to a solution, right? There's
Yeah.
no right answer. Um, so yeah, it was, it's hard because you don't know, but you're right. Now I look back on that and that's
Mhm.
a constant reminder. Okay, today, if I have something that makes me go get upset tonight,
Yeah.
tomorrow, what will I feel like?
Yeah, and it's the moments that really push you to
Yes.
really better understand yourself, what you're capable of, and
Mhm.
also the self-belief, right? It drives that belief in ourselves to be able to do more. So, talk to us about your current role because you're director of client success, which I love because
Yeah.
you're actually tasked with also launching that team. Talk to us about the opportunity, how it came about, what
Mhm.
the launch journey has been for you, and what does a day in your life look like right
Yeah.
now? I mean, tell us from the smoothies to like the time you go to bed.
The Starbucks, that I
How
spill in the
many?
car.
3.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So, right. So I think, the interesting thing is that there was no playbook, right? Of,
Mm,
hey, this is what client success looks like in a logistics industry,
right.
in an industry that has traditionally been transactional,
Well,
right?
okay, but I mean, it's so sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
it's so weird because this whole industry is based on relationship.
100%. But, right, I think we had different names, right? Yes and no, right? I think in the past, it was like, okay, yeah, we like you, but it was so easy to like keep it at
For
arm's
sure.
length, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
COVID happened, you couldn't come see me, right? And we have to get back to that and
Yeah.
back to that relationship. Get out there and go play golf, go take them to drinks, go to dinner, go to conferences. I'm standing, sitting in this room because I was wearing a hot pink shirt at a conference. So, the one thing I will say is people took a chance on me, right? They did take a chance on me. I didn't have the industry experience. And so my entire past was around client success. We never called it that.
Right.
And so I took a chance on them too. It was an industry I didn't know. It was starting a department on a new team, right? Hiring from the ground up, providing my own playbook. And it's turned out. I'm so thankful, right, for the opportunity that I was provided. And, the hard thing about when I came in is where the industry was, right? There was so much uncertainty with COVID. There was so much prices for an import were insane. We couldn't get our exports in the middle of the country out to the coast. It was a good time for me to come in because I was thrown into the fire. I truly feel like I have worked with people in my entire career to understand them, to have them trust me more. And I want what's best for them because that ultimately, at the end of the day, like how I feel good, right?
Yeah.
And creating those relationships. So,
well, and it's kind of set you up to what you're doing right now, right? All of those interactions, all of the people that you've met and you've learned from, and maybe you've done right, maybe you've done wrong. I mean, we're all not perfect, but it's led you up until this point, and being able to really put together a team around the success of your clients. What does that look like? What does it look like to them? What do we want that to look like? And helping to build that team. And so I'm sure that has been difficult because we've also been talking about labor shortages and all sorts of stuff. So I'm sure it's posed a lot of challenges. What were some of those challenges? And where are you at now? Like, what does it look like now? And what's your day to day?
Yeah. So, I think the biggest challenge, and I'm sure people ask you this, or when you ask people, is like, hey, what's going to happen in 6 months? What is our supply chain going to look like? Can you tell me what rates are going to be in July? Because I have a huge project, right? I can't predict that. I would have won the lottery, different things would have
Crystal
happened in
ball.
my life. Right. So, it also becomes my team is not an operational escalation. My team is not there to be so involved in the day to day, but it's, hey, if we have, refrigerated exports and we planning it out, where are we going to go? Are you going to be warehoused in the Midwest? More of a turnkey solution, right?
And
the
strategy, right? It sounds like there's a lot of strategy.
100%, especially, on the import side, most people can't take 15 inbounds a day, right? Okay, how do we go about that to strategize? I can't control the rail, right? But we can be strategic about that. And over the years, it's been, with the labor shortage, that's one of the most common questions we're asked, is what's going on. I had a call this morning, and my team and our role is to advise. Here's what we're hearing. Here's what we're seeing. Here's some data we can provide you. I think one of the most valuable things that my team provides is a quarterly business review. Hey, here's what we did, the last 3 months. Here's what's going on in our industry. And then let's talk about the future. How do we prepare ourselves to be successful?
And talk about a competitive advantage.
You wouldn't believe, it's like, I always say, this is a conversational, do not let me talk the whole time. And people want to talk about their business. And our team needs to know how their business runs in order to help them be successful, right? Yeah. Is it time? Is it transit time? Is it money? Do we need, is it a fragile shipment? All of these things go into it. And we need to know that to help them.
I think I've just coined a new term. What do you think about supply chain therapists?
I kind of feel like I am. Can I put that on my... I'm writing that one down.
No, I'm trademarking it after this. No, but Seriously though, like, yes, I completely agree with you. But at the same time, you're really doing, you're listening,
Yes.
right? You're listening for key challenges, key words that people are using,
Mhm,
and you're really understanding the heartbeat of
mhm.
their supply chains, right? What is it that helps their teams on a day-to-day basis? What
Yes.
is it that helps their leadership team on a daily basis?
Yes.
What is it that they have to then translate over to their C-suite to make sure that supply chain is being considered, right?
Yes.
Has a seat at the table, that there's
Yes.
an understanding as to why things are happening and what could potentially happen. And that's also where technology comes in, right? You need to have the right data to be able to provide those
Yes.
predictions and things like that. But it's not an exact science. This is a
Yeah.
people business.
Yes.
And I think you need a couch in your office.
Uh, you're right. Get in the couch. It's funny too, you talk about the different levels is we try and make an emphasis on having multiple contacts at clients. And the reason why is that someone who is in the day-to-day, right,
Mhm.
has a totally different experience and expectations than the salesperson
Yeah.
and the VP of finance or the CFO and the CEO, right?
Mhm.
I was in a meeting and the CEO said, "Why was our spend so high in November?" And someone in operations said, because we had the most shipments we've ever had. That's why the spend was high, right? So you're right. It is a relationship. Data is great and we can talk about it, but there has to be some sort of context and conversation around it.
Well, and you have to arm them with the right information to go back
Yes.
internally to really understand, you know, well, why did we have that many shipments in that particular month? Is it
Yes.
because they decided to put out some sales in a particular month? Is
Right.
it because we didn't plan properly or the manufacturer was down for 8 weeks?
Yes.
Like, there's so many different things that we just
Yes.
don't consider, and going back to those slides that you were talking about,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yep.
the chaos of
Oh,
how many people are involved in one particular shipment, and 1 month you have a bunch of shipments. It could be a bunch and a variety of different reasons for that,
yes.
but arming them, making their job easier
Hmm.
externally, internally, and it's really a partnership, and I've been
Yes.
talking about in logistics especially how important partnerships really are. Now, you talk about not having a crystal ball, but then you also talk about being able to give some predictions. So, what are your predictions for logistics over the next few years?
You just mentioned it's a people industry. I think that as technology gets better,
Mhm.
as people adopt technology, because I think we are lagging on that,
Mhm.
uh, our scope will change and look different. And I think we'll have more trends to look at. But I think at the end of the day, no matter how much technology we have, like
Mhm.
someone has to be there, right?
Yeah.
Technology can't provide an insight. Technology can't provide the managed services, right? Um, I think that we'll move more into like a fragmented market where the forwarding is back and it's interesting being an MVOCC and freight forwarder, right? To
Mhm.
see both sides. And so I think we go through a cycle, right? I,
Yeah.
I think that it's this constant cycle and we'll always be in it. And we're not quite sure, which quarter of that cycle we're on. But I think it's just really important to know your clients,
Mhm.
know what the expectations are, understand your business. What are you guys good at? Um, and again, I can't tell you what's going to happen. I hope that everything resolves with, labor unions and rate stabilization. But it's really a wait and see, but be prepared.
Yeah, and I think like we just never know what disruption is really around the corner. And
Yeah.
so, you can't predict anything like that. But what you can control is investing in partnerships, investing in relationships,
Yes.
investing in technology. So when that does happen, you can ride the wave and actually be better off than you were, you know, maybe even before the crisis or the
Yes.
disruption. I was actually talking about this the other day on Thoughts and Coffee, where they were saying that in a time of crisis is when you should be investing the most in technology, marketing, and partnerships with your vendors, right? And that's what's going to help you get to the other side of it and help you be better off at the end of it too.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard, hey, you were really helpful during this chaotic time. We
Mhm.
want to stick it out with you. Or, hey, like during that time, you let us, right? And so now
Yeah.
people will come and say, hey, we have this business idea. We're thinking about, moving production is a big one that people are discussing,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Not as much Asia based, or I should say China based. And so hey, what are our options there? Being
Mhm.
proactive, right, on that, as opposed to, okay, last minute, we got to figure this out.
Absolutely. Now, I want to switch the conversation to culture because
Yes.
NorthPoint Logistics is one of Inc.'s best workplaces in America, which is really an awesome achievement. And so, congratulations to you
Thank
and the
you.
team. What makes NorthPoint so special, and what can other organizations maybe learn from what you guys are doing?
The number one thing is the people that work here. When I came to NorthPoint Logistics, I always thought of this word culture, right,
Mhm.
being thrown out way too much,
Way too much.
or being thrown on a wall, painted on a wall to look nice,
Right.
because I think people think that that's the right thing to do.
Hmm.
Um, I truly, and this is so cheesy, I truly, when I came here, I realized, right, what a good culture is. It starts with the people, right?
Mhm.
We talk about putting the right people in the right seats.
Mhm.
Um, it is crucial when you interview someone, right, to make sure they're not just competent enough to do the job, or they don't, I love that
Yeah.
we don't only hire people with supply chain experience,
Hmm.
but that they would be a right fit. Are they going to challenge people? Are they going to teach them something that they wouldn't have known? Even myself, like, are you going to teach me something? Are you going to be respectful?
Hmm.
And so culture is something that you don't just check a box and it's there. You have to make a conscious effort every
Yeah.
single day
Every
to
day.
make it, and be intentional about it.
Mhm.
Um, I think that one of the hard things is that it's so easy for culture to slip away,
It
right?
is. Yeah.
Um, being vulnerable and being transparent has been such an important thing for me here. I've never been a part of an organization who is transparent and kind of says, like, here's what's going on in the business,
Yeah.
right? Here's what's important. Let's all talk about it.
Yeah.
Please raise your hand if you have a problem.
Mhm.
When you're vulnerable, right, it
Mhm.
allows other people to say, hey, I think something's wrong. And
Right.
if that person didn't say anything, we could have gone on
For a
for
long time.
months making
Yeah.
the same mistake. And, you know, it is truly, I always say when I interview, it's so much pressure because I want to make sure I bring the best people in to work alongside who's here. And I think you have to remember that, right? We have
Yeah.
frustrating days. This is a supply chain, right?
Yeah.
Things go wrong. Um, but you can still laugh, right? Because we have hard workers,
Yeah.
right? We're all behind each other and
Mhm.
it's not a competition,
Yeah.
right? We're all in it together. So it's been great.
Yeah, and you have to have the right people for that too. And I think vulnerability goes both ways. If you're
100.
not able to be vulnerable on both sides and take accountability. So I think accountability is a really big, important part of that piece as well. Because
Yes.
it's for one thing for one side to be vulnerable, it's the
Agreed.
other for them to be able to take responsibility for whatever that looks like, whether it's right or wrong, and not getting caught up in right or wrong and
Yes.
you shouldn't be feeling this way and like all that kind of stuff. And so, I think it takes a community, it takes a bit of a
Yes.
village, and that's kind of what a workplace really is all about. Like it's all
Yes.
embracing, it's inclusive, and yet there's some nuances that really make a culture special. And one of the other things that I know you're committed to is volunteering and charity work, especially back in college for you. And I think that NorthPoint also partners with some organizations to support local charities. Why is that so important to you personally, and why should more organizations be supporting social causes? I mean, I'm a little biased because I have a nonprofit that I would really like some corporate sponsorships for.
Yes. For me personally, I was raised, it was not a, hey, you get a kudos because the family went and volunteered. It was, this is our normal life, right? It was part of it. And then when I went to college and I joined a sorority, that was also, right, a requirement, but it brings people together. We talk about advocating for yourself as women.
Yeah.
And I think of it as, here is my chance to advocate for someone who maybe can't for themselves,
Yeah.
or has some obstacles that I don't have. Where our office is located in Kansas City, there are kids who go home on the weekend and don't know if they're going to have a meal that weekend. And I
Right.
drive in and out of the community every day.
Right.
We got together and went to Harvesters and did packed backpacks, right? And it was
Nice.
for the community that we work in. And I feel like, how do I come in to be a part of this and not give back? So I think volunteering and giving back comes in all sorts of forms, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be financially. I even take it like, don't throw anything away, right? Donate it.
Yeah.
Like,
Can you
give it to
donate it?
somebody who doesn't have the same opportunities or is going through something, like, you never know.
Yeah, it's so true. So we used to do tree planting
Love
as a
that.
volunteer opportunity. We also did Habitat for Humanity. And what a
Yes.
lot of companies don't realize is that Habitat for Humanity have restores. And they
Yes.
actually take product from an organization. Like if you have leftover merch or something that's
Yep.
out of date or whatever, they'll take all of that and they'll sell it in their store. And they'll
Yes.
make money to be able to provide housing to other people. So you're
Yep.
right. There's other ways. And Habitat for Humanity, your whole team could go and help build part of a house. Like
Yes.
that was some of the amazing experiences that we had when we were doing that. And we've chosen a different way for Let's Talk Supply Chain because I've got a bunch of freelancers.
Yeah.
But Harvest 107, like food is very important.
Yes.
Water.org, we support water.org.
Yes.
And we also do Kiva for entrepreneurship. So there's a
Yes.
variety of different ways to be able to do that. And I think organizations and even individuals can get really involved on a variety of different levels. But it also
Yeah.
takes people like you and it takes leaders to be able to say, hey, you know what? This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And these are the organizations that we're going to support. This is why. If you have one, if you have something going on in your life, come to me, let me know what it is, and we'll see what we
Yes.
can do and like incorporate it into sort of that impact that we're
Yes.
making.
And it truly, it doesn't take a ton from you to do that, right? It is, I think, it fills my glass, right? Like you feel, okay, I need to pay it forward, right? It's just something. So I agree. I think being the first to say, hey, let's go do this. Let's,
Yeah.
go
People like
volunteer.
it. They get a little bit scared if they've never done it before, and
Oh,
like, I don't
yes.
know how to hit a hammer. I mean, look at the two of us. I mean,
Yeah.
DIY, no.
Oh, the best one, we did a food drive and I was relatively new to the organization. Our CEO was out there directing traffic, right?
Nice.
I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah. I did Habitat for Humanity. I mean, I don't know how that house is still standing, but I drive by it all the time, and I did a pretty good job. So, what drives you? What inspires you?
I'm sure this is shocking, but I thrive being in a group of people in a relationship, uh, learning more about people, learning, what drives them, how do I help them, what makes, them tick. And so I think that's why I have been in, right, this client experience, client success. How do I help you? Let's talk, right? I'm a phone person.
Yeah.
And so, I've always played sports and been, part of a team, but also had an individual responsibility. And I love that, right? I'm accountable. I should say I'm responsible for myself. I'm accountable for the team.
I love that. I love that. So what experiences have you had, or what has your experience been like as a woman in supply chain? Have you had some mentors or sponsors to help you along the way? Have you encountered anything where you're like, I really don't like what's happening here? How do I
Yeah.
navigate this situation?
I think sometimes I was shocked at how frustrating things can be, right? I think, oh, it just should be this way. This is the right
Right.
thing.
I
And
think
then
we all
they're like,
think that.
that's not how it, I'm like, well, why not? That doesn't,
Uh-huh.
that's not how it should be. I think, it's interesting as a young girl, I watched movies, right? And there was always a successful woman who was in advertising or marketing and lived in New York and London. And, really, if you want to travel the world, learn about different cultures, understand the economics of the world, supply chain is it, right? Not advertising, not marketing. I think that I never had a mentor or sponsor, but social media is a great thing, right? I think that you probably didn't know who I was 6 months ago, and I knew who you were and looked up to you, right? There are a number of women in the industry that I feel the same about who don't know who I am.
Right.
The podcast, the blogs, different articles written. There are so many resources for our industry. And, coming in as a female who didn't have the 35 years, sometimes I felt I shouldn't be in this room, right? I felt out of place. I think I told you that I wouldn't wear a hot pink shirt because I didn't want to draw the attention to it. And so you kind of break down those barriers. And, seeing other women in the supply chain, like yourself, like I was at a client and it was a full team of women and I called it out, right? How cool is this? That helps, right? So it's really getting the awareness out and knocking down barriers for yourself.
Absolutely. So would that be the advice that you would give other women or maybe even leaders in supply chain?
I think the advice I would give to someone who, is either looking or unsure is if you even Google women in supply chain, if you look at, the conference that we were at, people were interactive and wanted to answer questions and then wanted to go hang out after and go to dinner and have drinks. There is research that you can do, right? Social media is an unbelievable thing for this. Like, put yourself out there. Advocate for yourself, like figure out, okay, where do I want to go? As far as, women, and better supporting women, I think what we just talked about, it's okay to be vulnerable both ways. It's okay to fail, right? Everyone is going to fail in this industry and you learn from it and get better. I think that there are so many different opportunities. Women can change this revenue team in the supply chain. I think that there's this bad idea of a sales team, right? A salesman. Women provide such a different approach to a sales team, right? And
just look what you've done with client success.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're part of the sales
Yes, absolutely.
behind the company, but you're doing it in a different way and you're establishing those relationships. You're using your resources, you're using your strengths to be able to bring another perspective, another aspect of the revenue generation that's linked to sales. And that is what makes inclusion. That's what makes diversity so important to an organization, is to really bring all of that together. Now, last question. I mean, you and I could talk forever, but last question, what's the future hold for Liz?
I am excited for more challenges. I think the supply chain presents them every day. I look forward to more people on the team. I look forward to helping people get to where they want to be in their career. I think that I will always be in a position where I want to be a part of a team, and help grow the business and see clients succeed, right? Having those skills. So
love that. You know what else is in your future?
Oh no.
The Woman in Supply Chain Forum in Atlanta in November, where we get to hang out again.
Yes, I just got that invite. And what's really cool is I had a girl I knew in college reach out and say, I didn't know you were in supply chain. I saw you were at this conference. And I said, you better come. Yeah.
That is awesome. I love that. Honestly, you and I could talk about this stuff all day. And I'm so excited that we were able to feature you on the Woman in Supply Chain series. I mean, we have really explored so many different things in this conversation about what it means to be a woman in supply chain, what it means to be client success, what it means to take a risk and really, lean into it, but also be vulnerable enough to say, hey, I've had those moments where I didn't know what I was going to do, but then I figured it out. And that's what these conversations are all about. And so I appreciate you for being brave and having the courage and trusting me to come on this show to tell your story. And I'm super excited to see what you do next because you're one talented woman, that's for sure. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.